Thank you so much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to, you know, see like dynamic people like you organizing these kinds of events, promoting the art ecosystem. It's always cool to see that throughout the world. Yeah, I want to thank you, both of you, Iman and Afra, for organizing this event. So yeah, what I will do today will be like an introduction to shinytest2, which will be like a demo introduction. I have no slides. I don't have slides. Whenever I present something, I never use slides. I don't like slides. I always live code. Yeah, we are like few people. So if anyone has a question at any time, please feel free to stop me and ask. But yeah, so without further ado, I will just share my screen. Mm, tell me if you see my screen. Now you should.
No, not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Oh,
Now,
now, yeah, yeah.
perfect. So, okay, let me just start a project in RStudio, like a new project. And I just call it Shiny Test 2 Demo. All right, I'll just create the project now. That's cool. Okay, so I have my RStudio here. I have a fresh project open. And what I will do is I will create like a really simple Shiny application, like something really simple. Because like the focus of this workshop, or not like this presentation, it's not really a workshop, is to demonstrate like how easy it is to work with shinytest2, to demonstrate like the features of shinytest2. It's not really like a presentation about Shiny itself, right? So I don't want people to focus to have like a mental load concerning Shiny. I just want to build something easy in Shiny, then show how to test it in shinytest2. So I will just quickly create a Shiny app. So I have a project and I will create like the simplest Shiny app possible. I will call it app.r. And this Shiny app will have like one feature. It will have like an input, like a numeric input, like two numeric inputs, and a result, which will be like the multiplication of the two numeric inputs, and then a button, right? That says calculate whenever we want to calculate something. So I'll just create the Shiny app like really quick. So I have like this I say this Shiny app skeleton. I always hate to use library Shiny. I just always like do namespace function. It's more it's clearer. So I have my skeleton here. I will just now provide like my first numeric input using Shiny num input. Uh, should I zoom a little bit more, or is it okay? Can you see the code? Or I will zoom a bit, okay, just in case. I think
Yes,
now
it's
it's,
better.
yeah, it's clearer. Yeah, cool. So I have my numeric first numeric input. I will give it an ID. What should I call it? I'll just call it number one, right? And then I will give it a label. So number one, okay? I'll give it a default value of 10 and no max and no means. Okay, I'm not interested in the mean or the max. So this is my first numeric input. I will just put a space between the two using a BR. So I will put a space and then I will just use another numeric input here. I will call it number two, and then with the label the same number two with a default value of 10, right? So it's perfect. I will go with a BR again, and I will at the end like implement my output, which will be like in Shiny when you want to display like an output, a code output. The best option is usually the function Shiny verbatim text output, right? So this will be like displayed as a code output. So I will give it an ID of multiplication result, right? So this is it. result. Perfect. Now I have my output. The only thing that I need, I'll just put some space again here, is a button that says calculate whenever I want to calculate something. So I'll just put here shiny action button input calc. I will call it calc btn for button. And then I will put a label calculate, right? That's perfect. Let's see how the UI looks like. I can just run the app and take a look at the UI. Can you see the UI? Or I
Yes.
don't know. Yeah, okay, perfect. So it's really simple app. I have a numeric input, two numeric input, an output that should be displayed here somewhere whenever I hit calculate. Now for now nothing happened because my server is not coded yet, but the UI looks normal. I need maybe a little bit of space above number one, so I will just put a space here at the beginning. Doesn't hurt. This is perfect. Okay, so now I will use the server. I will just, I will use a normal Shiny syntax. I will just grab this ID here, right? I will observe this button. Okay, so first of all, I will just render the thing just to see if it works. So I will grab this output here in my verbatim text output. I will do output $sign this and assign it to Shiny render print. Okay, and inside render print, I will just grab this here input and multiply it by this input. Okay, so that I have the multiplication. So I will just do input number one multiplied by input number two. Okay, and if I run the application now, we should have like the result immediately. So if I modify this, I will have the result, but this is not what I want. I want really like a button here that will trigger the calculation. I don't want the calculation to be triggered until I click calculate, right? So I don't want this this stuff here. So what I need to do is observe this button here. So whenever someone click, I will trigger this code here. So I just do, I don't know if it's the best option to do it, but it's really not important for now. I just observe event, calc button, and then I will trigger this. Now, if I run this, okay, I'll just make it a little bit smaller. If I run this won't work because, can someone tell me why it won't work? Because if I modify this will be modified. I don't want this behavior. I want this output to be modified only whenever I click here. So this is due to the fact that this input is like actually a reactive object, and whenever this changes, this code here, this render prints will be executed. So I need to use here in this case, it's a really nice use case of the Shiny function isolate. So I will just grab this, put it inside an isolate, and I will just isolate these two from this reactive environment. And I will put this one here, Shiny isolate. And yeah, now I will run again my application, and then if I hit calculate, I will have the result. Now, if I change these values, this won't change until I hit calculate, and it works perfectly. So this is like, this is like the my very simple multiplication app. So this is great. We have a small app, it is working. Now we need to figure out how to test it, because actually here we have like a value, another value, and we expect something. We expect the multiplication of these two inputs whenever we click on calculate, okay? So this is like a really good example of how to test like a feature, because when testing, we always have expectations that are related to inputs. So we give something and we expect something, and this is what we test, okay? So using shinytest2, like shinytest2 is a relatively new package. It has been like released, I would say the last 3 months or so. I'm not sure, but it's quite cool because you can use like what we call like a serverless uh, browser. So you can like control the browser without opening it. So it's quite cool. But how do we start? So here we have like our folder. It contains like the app.r. And like the first thing that we need to do is really simple. It's called shinytest2. And inside shinytest2, there is a function called use shinytest2. And this function will like create the folders and the files that are necessary to, to use the package. So if I run this, you can see that here it says no R building nor file found, skipping while because I don't have like a Git. I didn't initiate a Git folder here. It's not a Git folder yet, but in the future it will be. At some point it has to be. Use Git, it's great. And here it says no description file found because I'm not in a package, so there is no description file. Great, so we can ignore these warnings. They're not important, but you can see that here it created like a test folder, right? So a test folder with a test.r. So this one we can just like skip it. It doesn't interest us. But what's interesting here, it creates this file called setup.r. And this, I think, will just test that the Shiny, like our Shiny app, has like the main characteristic that makes it working. So it's not really a test, um, but it will just check that the app like doesn't crash, if I understood well. But to be honest, I have never used this file or focused on this file. So shinytest2 by default created both. But if I want to have like a test file, now the next step will be to use shinytest2, and then I will just use shinytest2 test. Okay, and then I will just run this function, and then here it will create for me this test shinytest2.r. So I can rename it if I want, give it another name, but for now, it's just not interesting to rename it. But you can see that we have like some code inside. So it's library shinytest2, and then here there's like some description. Initial shiny values are consistent. Okay. Yeah, this is really like a simpler test that you can run. And here it works the same as test.dat. I don't know if you have used test.dat, but it's like the main package used to test code in R. It's called test.dat, and it has like a function called also test.dat, and you can put like your test inside. Like the first parameter will be the description of the test, and then your test here. Great. So now what I can do, so we remove these expect values. What I can do is very simply, I can call this, I can load shinytest2, it will be load. And if I run this app driver new, you can see that I will have an object here. It will be like, I think it's an R6 object. R6 like is just like an object-oriented paradigm, and it's extensively used in the R ecosystem with a set of function. And actually here, my app is running, but you don't see it, right? So for example, if I do here, if I have an app, I know that I have inputs, okay? I have two inputs. I have my input here. If I go to my code, I have this input with an ID number 1 and this input with an ID number 2, okay? So I can set the values of this input here in my test without opening my apps, which is pretty insane. So I can just do app set inputs, and here I put the ID of the input. In my case, it's number 1. So I will just do number 1, and I will give it a value of, I don't know, um, of, let's say, 100, right? And I will do the same with the other input. So I'll just do app set input and provide the ID, which will be number 2, and I'll give it a value of 2. Now it's pretty nice because I know that like the result should be always be equal to 200, right? In this test, in this example. But I need to trigger the app, right? I need to trigger the calculate here, this calculate button, so that I can, inside here, don't forget that we are inside the app. Just you don't see it, but the app is like is running in the background. So if I do app set input, it sets the first input to 100. App set input, this is the second input to 2. And then I need to, to click on calculate. So how can I do it in shinytest2? There is also like a method in the app object called click. So if I do click and I provide the like the input, the name of the ID, in our case, it's calc button, BTN. So if I do this, I will have, I would have, just by running this function, this method here, I just like literally clicked on the button, calc button. And now I can retrieve the result. I can retrieve my result. So if I do app get result or get value, so if I do get value from my output, right, I just provide the ID of the output, and the ID is multiplication result. If I run this, I will have the value of 200, which is nice, right? So this is exactly what I want. But here I have only this issue here because it gives me the value, right? It gives me really the value that's in the that's printed, like the real R printing value. It's not like it doesn't give me the 200. So I can fix this in several ways. There are like many ways to do it, but like the simplest way is just like here to, instead of printing, like of returning the value, this result here. So I can just use the cat function. So, and if I use the cat function, it will just like instead of putting the 1 here, it will just provide the value. So if I save it and run this code here again, app new and get value, I should get only 200. Yeah, this is exactly what I want. And now I can just, I can just use normal tests like unit test, like really simple unit test. I know that I have 100 in my input. I know that I have 2 here. I know that my app calculates the multiplication. So I just do test that here, right? I will assign it. I will assign this to a variable called result, and then I will just do test. Expect equal. So this is my expectation here. I expect that this result here should be equal to 200. Okay. But here, like I get like a string, so I need to do as numeric here. I can just do really simply as numeric, and then I can run my test. I have a test without opening my app. I can just, run my test. So if I want to run the test, I can just call shinytest2 run. I think it's test app. So I would just test app. It will, read this file or all the test files, and then the test pass. It's great. So I have an app, and I know it's super simple what we are doing, but it works the same way even with super complex app, because in every Shiny application, you'll always have like something, an input, you have some calculation, and then you have a result. And you can always, expect something, like according to the input that you provide. So it's the same process for even like for complex stuff. Yeah, but now let's suppose I made a mistake. Okay, so I'm coding or my colleague is coding and someone has made a mistake and has pushed the code And like before production, it's always good to have like some pipelines that run to make tests and stuff. So for example, let's say I did here, instead of multiplication, I did a plus, right? So I will have different results. So what we will do, what happened like in practice is like, okay, we have done some modification, made mistakes. We always make mistakes, it's normal. Commit the stuff, push, and when we release, or before, I mean before pushing, it always goes to make like a testing, to put like, to use like to always test your code before you push it. So we can hear like, okay, I did some features, made a mistake, but for now I don't know. So I can just run shiny test2 test app and wait for the test to be run. And then I have a test failure, which is great. So it tells me um, here test failures, um, and it says as numeric result not equal to 200, one mismatch, because what I get here like is a mismatch of minus 98. So I got like 102. This is the value because I use the plus, but I should instead get 200. So I didn't, so I get this mismatch. So it's really like really precise. It gives us really like precise error information, and I find it pretty cool. So this is like about expect equal, and here we can also test like really like normal stuff. So if I have an app that should only be triggered whenever a user click a button, only when a user click a button, I can test this behavior. So I can, for example, here like just to check, run the app. Now I have my app running in the background. I can set the input, the two inputs, and then I can get the value before clicking on the calculate button. And the value before clicking on the calculate button should be null, because remember, like the result shouldn't appear before clicking on the button. Okay, so I can just do initial result and then run this, and initial result should be null. Okay, it's null, it's perfect, and it's totally normal. And here I can just do use test that. So I would just do test that, expect null, and then I would just put initial value inside, and that's it. I have a nice test. It's a nice test. And then in the future, whenever we do something, we will be always sure if the test passes that my app is only triggered when the user click on the button, on the calculate button. Okay, and yeah, it seems simple here, but it is simple. It doesn't only look simple. It is actually simple to test apps, thanks to the shinytest2 package. So here I can just like go back, put the multiplication again, and then call again my shiny test2 test app. The test will, run. Takes a little bit of time, not that much, and then it passes. Perfect. Of course, you can do like much more. Like really, here I'm just grabbing the basics of shinytest2. You can do snapshot testing, like if you want to test like a UI. You can do like you can test reactive values using like shinytest2 will just create a JSON file for you, and then you will compare. Yeah, the sky is the limit. Like it's really like flexible. But here, what you can do also, so you can, for example, let me think. So here I have an app and I have a result. And suppose that I want to check, if my result is greater than 0, I want to print it. If my result is negative, okay, it's not positive, I want instead not print the result, I want to print a message. I want to stop, like, not stop, but I want to print just a message. So I will do if result less than 0, I can just here print or cat operation not allowed for negative values. Okay. Okay, this is great. So this is my cat here. I can now run my app just to test it. And if I give a negative value here and to calculate, I should get this nice measure. Okay. Okay, I forgot to put here return null. So cat this and don't run this. So I'll just put here return invisible null because I don't want to see a null. And yeah, now it should work perfectly. And I will just do a minus here and put a calculate. So yeah, I got the message. And I can test this behavior too. I can go here, like put some space here and set my input to some negative value. So I'll just use up, set input, and then I will do number 2 equal minus, I don't know, minus 20, right? And then what I will do, I will click on the calculate button, okay? And I will, and in Shiny or in shinytest2, it's possible to get the values, but it's also possible to get, I mean, we can test this behavior in different way. We can just do like app get value and expect to get this message. But we can also get, you know, we can just get the HTML element that will be displayed. And it's really cool. So we can do, for example, app here, and there is like many getter functions, and we can just use get HTML or get text. So if I want to check the text that should be displayed whenever I have a negative value, I can just do get text here. So I will run this. So I will start my app again. Set my first value to 100, my second value to minus 20, click on the button, get the text to check. And I forgot the selector here. I need a selector, and this should be like a CSS selector or an HTML. I don't know how to call it, but it's like it's a web selector, right? It's a DOM selector. So here the ID should start with the hash because it's an ID, and I will put my selector is like this here, this output. This is my ID, and I will just do this, and I get my value here. Look, and then here I can just check it. I can check because whenever I have a negative value somewhere, I should get this. So I can just do, I can put it to a variable, call it a negative result, something. Let me print it. So I have negative result, and then I use expect that. So I just do test that, expect equal, and then I can use my object here. And the expected value is this. Okay. Sorry, I will just make it more like a little bit. Okay, this is perfect. Yeah. So now, if I run my test again, everything should pass. I will do shinytest2, run test app, and then it runs. It goes first run. Oh, there is a test that's not passed. So here it says initial result is not null. Yeah, because this is really great. Look, it tells us that initial result is not null because, can someone tell me why? Because here we are calling like the expect null in this area. And we have already clicked on the calculate button. So it cannot be null. So we have to always check this before clicking on the calculate button. So if I do this here, now it should work. And now all the tests should pass. And I do this, test app. And then, yeah, free test passes. Perfect. But look what happened when I modify, like if I make a typo somewhere, for example, operation not blah, blah, blah. Sorry. here, save the app and test again. Now the text is different and I should get an error. Yeah, and with a nice cheering message, I believe in you, thank you. Yeah, and then it says negative result not equal to operation not allowed, blah blah blah. Yeah, which is pretty cool. So let us fix this. And you can do more. You can really get like the HTML element, check that you get like, like a paragraph element, check that you get a table element, HTML element, and you can like really like do a lot of stuff, really. And this operation that we did now, we can also do it in an interactive way. So if I want, for example, I don't like the interactive way because it's quite, I don't know, I just don't like it. I find here the scripting way um, more natural. As a programmer, I feel it like more natural than just opening a GUI and then clicking somewhere and then getting something. It just feels not natural. But just for people that want to use it, you can always call shinytest2 record test, and then it will open like a GUI for us. I hope. Can you see my screen
Yes.
again? Yeah, can you see the GUI here?
Mm-hmm.
So it will do the same thing. So I change the value here. I will put 100. You can see on the right that it says app set input to 100 here. And then it says app set window size. So here it's always good to set the window size in your test so that you don't have a mismatch. Like if the users have a window size of, I don't know, like of a width of 200 and the height of 200, and you have like a height of 1000, then if you are like testing snapshots, like UI code or UI output, then it will be like problematic. So always use a fixed width and fixed height in your test. So it's like something, yeah. And then I put like an input here, another value, 200 or 2000, and then I click calculate, and then it says app click. And I did some operation, and then I do like here, I can click expect shiny values or expect screenshot. In this case, we are more interested in expect shiny values. So I click here, and then I do save test and exit. And I can go back to my code, to my RStudio, and it's creating, it's running here in the background. It's running some tests. And what it did here, it gave us some code, the same code that we saw earlier, but it created it for us. So here you can remember that what we said, like the input of 100, and then we resized the window, and then we set the input to 2000. We clicked on the calc tablet, and then we expect some values. And this app that expects values will actually check another. We create like this test here that we did in the GUI. We create a JSON file. This one here. It's called shinytest2 demo 001.json. This PNG is not like we don't care about this PNG because we're not testing like UI, so we can remove it. And you can have a parameter of like screenshot equal false, and then you can ignore these screenshots. But what interests us is this JSON file. And JSON is really like famous JavaScript format. It's like the equivalent of list. List like R has list to store like objects or values of different data type, nested values, and JavaScript has JSON, and it's really famous. So here you can see that it creates this JSON file with this information. So it has an input, right? So this is like an input object which contains this element. So a value for our calculate button, it's 1 because we clicked only once in it, and it increments. If we click it 2 times, we will get 2. A number 1 ID, which has a value of 100, and number 2 ID for our input, which has a value of 2000, and then the result, which is a string, because R returns a string in this case. In our render, it's a render print, and which is like equivalent to 200,000, which is correct. Now look exactly what happened if we make a mistake in our app. So if I do a plus here, save it, test the app again, look exactly how cool it is, because it's really cool. So it will, it failed in our classical test that we did, and it will also fail in the new stuff. So look what happened here. uh, it showed us like a part of the JSON file. So the output part. So you have if you go to the JSON part or the JSON file, you see here output multiplication result. So here it showed us, okay, so you have, we are expecting these values, but because you use the plus instead of the multiplication operator, we are getting these values. So there is a mismatch. So it tells you exactly which part of your JSON file um, is messing around. And this is really cool, because if you have like a complex Shiny app, you will have, I assume you will have a big JSON file, a bigger, definitely. And this ability to detect exactly where the value is like breaking is really, really cool. And it say here before, so you have like before and you have after, and you get, a nice message. So yeah, so you have two ways to like test apps. You can test it in the GUI. I don't recommend it. I find it here cooler, to write code and then click and then do and get text, expect equal, like test that with a shinytest2, which are different package but works really nice together. Or you can use the GUI, up to you. And yeah, this was the introduction in shinytest2. I think I have covered like the most fundamental and important parts. Of course, there is like more. Definitely, it's just like it's not even 2% of what shinytest2 provides. Um, just go to the documentation, Google shinytest2, read the official docs. You will find plenty more of info. But yeah, that's all. And if you have a question, please feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fudail.